Have you ever walked away from a conversation and thought to yourself, why did I say that? I should have stayed quiet. It happens to all of us. We've all had moments where words slipped out too fast, where emotions hijacked our tongue, where silence could have protected us, but instead we let noise take over. And every time we wish we could rewind. But here's the truth. You can never take words back. Once spoken, they leave your mouth and enter the world like arrows. And those arrows don't return. Think about it. How many friendships, relationships, even careers have been damaged by words spoken at the wrong moment? How many opportunities have been lost, not because of what someone did, but because of what they said? Words carry weight. They can heal, they can hurt, they can open doors, they can close them. And yet, silence often holds more power than any sentence. Let me ask you this. What if I told you that some of the strongest people in the world are not the ones who speak the loudest, but the ones who master the art of silence? What if silence wasn't emptiness, but a weapon, a shield, a strategy? What if silence could save you from unnecessary battles, protect your energy, and guard your peace? Most people think silence means weakness. But that's wrong. Silence is not weakness, it's wisdom. Silence doesn't mean you're afraid to speak. It means you are smart enough to know when not to speak. And the difference between those who succeed in life and those who get stuck in endless drama often comes down to this simple skill, knowing when to remain silent. Tonight, I want to take you into a journey into the moments of life where silence is not just golden, it's necessary. There are specific situations, 9 of them, where silence is your greatest ally. And when you understand them, when you practice them, you'll notice something remarkable. You'll stop losing energy to pointless arguments. You'll stop regretting words you never should have spoken. And you'll start commanding more respect than ever before. So here's the challenge. As you listen, I want you to ask yourself, have I been giving away my power with my words? Or am I ready to reclaim it with my silence? Because by the end of this, you'll know exactly when to close your mouth, hold your peace, and let silence do the talking. And trust me, silence speaks louder than you think. People often confuse silence with weakness. They think that if you don't speak up immediately, you're afraid. They assume that if you don't react, you're powerless. But in reality, silence is one of the greatest demonstrations of strength you will ever master. Anyone can lash out. Anyone can raise their voice. Anyone can argue, scream, or defend themselves at every provocation. But it takes a different kind of strength to hold back, to stay calm, and to refuse to give others the satisfaction of controlling your emotions. That's power. Think about it for a moment. The strongest trees don't bend in every storm. They stand rooted, unshaken, unmoved while chaos rages around them. That is what silence is. The ability to remain rooted in your peace while the world demands a reaction from you. And make no mistake, people will try to pull a reaction out of you. They will insult you. They will test you. They will provoke you just to see what buttons they can push. And the moment you explode, the moment you lose control, they win. But when you remain silent, when you refuse to play their game, you take back all the power. Silence is not about having nothing to say. It's about knowing that not everything needs to be said. It's about recognizing that your words are currency and you don't spend currency on things that have no value. Imagine someone tries to bait you with an insult. You could argue, you could waste 10 minutes proving them wrong. But what do you gain? Nothing. All you do is give them your time, your energy, your peace. Silence, however, leaves them powerless. They can't fight silence. They can't twist silence. They can't win against silence. This is why silence intimidates people. They can't read you. They can't predict you. They can't manipulate you when you don't give them anything to work with. The quiet person in the room often commands the most respect. Not because they're weak, but because their silence speaks louder than everyone else's noise. When you don't rush to speak, when you wait, when you measure your words carefully, people pay more attention when you finally do speak. Your silence raises the value of your voice. Think about history. Some of the greatest leaders and thinkers weren't the ones who shouted the loudest. They were the ones who observed, listened, and spoke only when it mattered. Their silence wasn't emptiness. It was presence. It was strategy. It was focus. That's why their words carried weight. Silence gives weight to your voice. Without silence, your words are just noise. With silence, your words become impact. Too many people today are addicted to noise. They think they must always respond, always prove themselves, always have the last word. But here's the truth. The person who always has to prove something has already lost. The person who cannot sit in silence is controlled by others. Silence, on the other hand, shows you don't need to prove anything. You already know your value, and you don't need anyone else to validate it. Silence is also discipline. It takes discipline not to speak when you're triggered. It takes discipline to keep your plans to yourself instead of announcing them to people who may not support you. It takes discipline to listen when you'd rather interrupt. That discipline creates inner strength. And that inner strength is what separates the powerful from the powerless. I want you to remember this. Silence is not passive. It is active. When you are silent, you are not doing nothing. You are choosing control. You are choosing not to let your words become weapons that hurt you. You are choosing to protect your dignity. You are choosing to conserve your energy for battles that truly matter. Silence is an action, and it's one of the most powerful actions you can take. Look at your own life. How many arguments could you have avoided if you had chosen silence? How many regrets could you have saved yourself if you had just walked away? How much energy could you have preserved if you hadn't wasted it explaining yourself to people who didn't care about the truth? Silence could have saved you, and if you practice it now, silence will protect you in the future. The next time someone tries to drag you into chaos, remember this: silence is not weakness. It is strength. It is strategy. It is the invisible armor you wear that no one can penetrate. And when you master it, you'll realize something incredible. You no longer feel the need to win every argument. You no longer waste your time convincing others, and you no longer let people control your emotions, because silence gives you back your power. So don't underestimate it. Don't let anyone tell you that staying silent means you're afraid. It means you're wise. It means you understand the value of your peace. It means you know your worth doesn't come from how much you talk, but from how much you control yourself. Remember this: silence is not the absence of power. Silence is the proof that you have mastered it. Every single day, you wake up with a limited amount of energy. It's like a battery. That energy decides how focused. Silence is protection. It is like a shield around your mind and your spirit. When you choose silence, you are choosing to save your energy for things that matter. Not everything deserves your voice. Not every insult deserves your explanation. Not every rumor deserves your response. You don't need to attend every argument you're invited to. The truth is, most of those arguments are energy traps. The more you talk, the weaker you become because you're pouring out your energy into a place that can never give it back. Think about how many times you've explained yourself to someone who was never interested in understanding you. They weren't asking because they cared. They were asking because they wanted to drain you, test you, pull you into their drama. And you gave them exactly what they wanted: your energy. But what did you gain? Nothing. That's why silence is powerful. It protects you from energy thieves. It keeps you focused on the things that bring growth, not the things that bring exhaustion. You see, silence is not just the absence of words. Silence is direction. It's choosing to redirect your energy where it can grow, instead of where it will die. When you stay silent in the face of provocation, you are saying to yourself, my peace is more valuable than proving my point. When you stay silent instead of feeding gossip, you are saying, my reputation and my dignity are more valuable than temporary attention. When you stay silent instead of revealing your every thought, you are saying, my dreams are too valuable to be exposed to the wrong people. That's what protection looks like. Not fighting every battle, but reserving your energy for the battles that matter most. Because here's the truth. Not every fight deserves you. Not every critic deserves your response. Not every challenge deserves your strength. Some things are beneath you. And silence is the way you remind yourself not to waste your greatness on nonsense. If you've ever felt tired at the end of the day without even doing much, it's probably not your body that's exhausted. It's your mind. It's your spirit. Because you've been leaking energy through your words all day, explaining, arguing, defending, complaining, and none of that ever moved you forward. Imagine instead if you save that energy. Imagine if you let silence carry the weight instead of your words. Imagine how much more power you'd have to chase your goals, to stay focused, to protect your peace. That's the gift silence gives you. Silence is a boundary. It tells the world, I don't give access to my energy unless it's worth it. And boundaries are not built with anger or arguments. They're built with silence. You don't need to explain your no. You don't need to defend your choices. You don't need to justify your boundaries. Silence itself is enough. And people may not like it. They may call you cold, distant, arrogant. But remember this, people who benefit from your lack of boundaries will always complain when you start protecting yourself. Stay silent anyway, because your energy is worth more than their approval. Here's another truth. Silence also protects you from yourself, because sometimes it's not other people that drain your energy. It's you. You drain yourself when you over-explain. You drain yourself when you overshare. You drain yourself when you talk about plans instead of acting on them. Silence teaches discipline. It forces you to hold back, to stay private, to protect your energy until the right moment. And in that silence, you gain clarity. You see things you couldn't see before. You hear your own thoughts more clearly. You connect with yourself on a deeper level. Think of silence like a filter. Without it, every word that leaves your mouth takes a piece of you with it. But with silence, you keep the best parts of yourself intact until you decide they're ready to be shared. That's how you protect your energy. That's how you make sure your voice has power when you finally choose to use it. So the next time you feel the urge to respond to an insult, remind yourself, my energy is too valuable for this. The next time someone tries to pull you into gossip, remind yourself, my energy is too focused for this. The next time you feel the urge to argue just to prove you're right, remind yourself, my energy is too powerful to waste on being right. I choose peace instead. That's what silence does. It protects you from battles that cost too much and give back too little. Silence is not weakness. It's wisdom. It's knowing that your energy is your most valuable currency and you cannot spend it carelessly. Protect it with silence. Guard it with silence. Value it with silence. Because at the end of the day, the person who protects their energy always wins. Not the loudest, not the angriest, not the one with the most words, but the one who knows when to stay silent, conserve their power, and use it only where it truly matters. Respect is not something you demand with noise. Respect is something you earn with presence. And silence is one of the strongest ways to build that presence. When you walk into a room, you don't rush to speak. When you sit calmly and let others reveal themselves first, people notice you. They wonder what you're thinking. They pay closer attention to you because you are not giving everything away. Silence creates mystery, and mystery creates respect. Have you ever met someone who talks too much, who interrupts constantly, who feels the need to prove they know everything? What happens? After a while, you stop listening. Their words lose value because there are too many of them. They may think they're commanding attention, but in truth, they're losing it. Now think of the opposite. Someone who rarely speaks, but when they do, everyone listens. Why is that? Because silence gives weight to words. The less you use them, the more valuable they become. That's how silence commands respect. Silence is also strength because it shows restraint. Anyone can argue back. Anyone can defend themselves at every accusation. Anyone can get loud. But when you stay calm and quiet in the middle of chaos, you show people that you're not controlled by them. You're not desperate for their approval. Think about the most respected people you've seen. They are rarely the ones who shout or dominate every conversation. They are the ones who sit back, observe, and speak sparingly. Their silence creates anticipation. It forces people to lean in when they finally open their mouth. Their silence makes their voice more powerful. If you want respect, don't fight to be the loudest in the room. Learn to be the quietest one who speaks with impact. Silence also keeps you from looking small. How many times have you seen arguments where both sides look foolish? One person shouts, the other shouts louder, and at the end neither gains respect. They both lose it. But if you remain silent, you separate yourself from the noise. You show that you are above the nonsense. People may still disagree with you, but they will respect the fact that you did not lower yourself to unnecessary drama. Silence keeps your dignity intact, and dignity always commands respect. Another reason silence commands respect is because it gives people space to reveal themselves. When you talk too much, people feel judged, pressured, or challenged. But when you stay silent and listen, they start to open up. They tell you more than they intended. They show you who they really are. And here's the secret. People respect those who listen more than those who speak. When you listen deeply, without interruption, people feel valued. And when they feel valued, they respect you. Silence earns that. But there's another side to this. Silence not only makes others respect you, it makes you respect yourself. When you don't waste words, when you don't get dragged into useless conflicts, when you don't cheapen your voice by using it carelessly, you begin to see your own worth more clearly. And when you respect yourself, the world has no choice but to follow. People treat you based on the standard you set for yourself. If you throw your words around loosely, they'll treat you loosely. But if you protect your voice with silence, they'll treat it like gold. Respect is also about unpredictability. If people always know exactly how you'll react, they can manipulate you. But silence makes you unpredictable. They can't tell if you're ignoring them, analyzing them, or planning your next move. And that unpredictability commands respect. Because it shows you cannot be easily read and you cannot be easily controlled. Silence keeps people guessing, and guesswork creates caution. Caution is respect. Here's something to remember. Respect is not loud, it's quiet. It doesn't scream, it doesn't beg, it doesn't demand, it simply is. And silence embodies that perfectly. The quiet person doesn't need validation. The quiet person doesn't need to win every argument. The quiet person doesn't need to prove their intelligence. They already know who they are, and that self-assurance radiates outward. People respect those who don't need to prove themselves because it shows they are secure, grounded, and in control. So the next time you feel pressured to speak, remind yourself, silence is an option. And sometimes silence is the most powerful response you can give. If someone disrespects you, silence shows them you are not moved. If someone underestimates you, silence makes them wonder what you're truly capable of. If someone tries to provoke you, silence proves you are above their level. And in all of those moments, you gain respect, not by fighting for it, but by letting silence command it for you. Respect is not given to the loudest person. Respect is given to the one who speaks least, but says the most. The one who doesn't waste words. The one whose silence speaks volumes. So never be afraid of silence. Use it, embrace it, master it, because silence is not just the absence of noise. It is the presence of power. And where there is power, there will always be respect. Silence is not just the absence of sound. It is the sharpening of awareness. When you stop speaking, when you stop rushing to fill every moment with noise, something powerful happens. You start to see the truth that was hidden before. Most people miss what's really happening around them because they are too busy talking. They're explaining, defending, reacting, filling the air with their words. And while they're doing all of that, they miss the signs, the details, the truth that silence could have revealed to them. The truth doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it shows up in body language, in hesitation, in what's not being said, rather than what is. But you will never catch those signals if you are too busy trying to get your own words out. Silence creates space for observation. Silence trains you to watch more closely, to hear more deeply, to sense what others are not telling you. The quiet person often knows the most, not because they were told, but because they noticed. Think about this in your own life. How many times did someone reveal their true character, but you didn't catch it because you were talking too much? How many times did you ignore the signs of betrayal, dishonesty, or manipulation because you didn't take the time to be silent and observe? People always reveal themselves. Always. But you have to be silent long enough to see it. When you let others talk, they show you who they are. When you let silence do its work, the truth comes to the surface. Silence also helps you see the truth about yourself. When you're constantly distracted by noise, you lose touch with your own inner voice. You forget to ask yourself the hard questions. You forget to listen to your instincts. But when you embrace silence, when you step away from the chatter, you begin to see yourself more clearly. You recognize your patterns, your strengths, your weaknesses. You hear the truth your spirit has been trying to tell you. Silence is a mirror, and in that mirror, the truth becomes undeniable. The problem is that many people are afraid of silence. They fill every second with sound, music, conversations, television, arguments, because silence can feel uncomfortable. But that discomfort is where the truth lives. Silence strips away illusions. Silence reveals the things you've been avoiding. And sometimes the truth is painful, but ignoring it doesn't make it disappear. Only in silence can you confront it, accept it, and grow stronger from it. In conversations, silence gives you leverage. If you want to know someone's intentions, don't rush to fill the pauses. Just wait. Let the silence sit there. Most people are uncomfortable with silence, and they will start talking to fill it. And in doing so, they will often tell you more than they planned. They will reveal their doubts, their weaknesses, even their lies. Silence has a way of bringing out the truth in people who cannot handle it. And that's a power you must learn to use. Silence also helps you see beyond emotions. Words spoken in the heat of the moment are often clouded by anger, fear, or pride. But silence gives you space to step back and look at the bigger picture. In silence, you realize what truly matters and what doesn't. You see that not every battle is worth fighting. Not every criticism deserves your attention. Not every disagreement needs your voice. The truth becomes clearer when you are not blinded by the impulse to react. And the truth is not only about others, it's about situations. Silence helps you evaluate. When you stop speaking and start observing, you see patterns others miss. You recognize opportunities before they become obvious. You detect danger before others even notice it. Silence is awareness. It sharpens your intuition. It allows you to connect the dots that people who are always talking will never connect. That's why silence is not passive, it's active. It's the most powerful research tool you will ever have. Imagine being in a meeting where everyone is rushing to speak, to prove themselves, to impress, but you sit quietly listening, watching. At first, they may overlook you, but by the time you open your mouth, you have all the information. You know who's insecure. You know who's overcompensating. You know who's hiding something. And when you finally speak, your words carry weight because you speak with the clarity that silence gave you. That's how you stand out. Not by saying more, but by saying less after you've seen the truth. Silence also protects you from lies. People can lie with words, but they can't hide their truth forever. Their body language, their tone, their hesitation will betray them. But you'll only notice it if you're silent enough to observe. The truth has a way of leaking out through cracks, and silence gives you the patience to notice those cracks. Even in relationships, silence reveals everything. Watch how people treat you when you stop explaining yourself. Watch how they react when you stop defending yourself. Silence will show you who respects you, who takes advantage of you, who values you, and who doesn't. You don't need to argue to find out. Just stay silent and observe. The truth always shows itself to those who are willing to wait. So understand this, silence is not empty. Silence is full of answers. It's full of signals, patterns, and truths that noise covers up. The person who talks less often knows more. The person who listens in silence often sees the truth before anyone else. And in a world full of noise, the one who embraces silence gains the advantage. The truth is always there. But most people are too loud to see it. If you can learn to sit in silence, to watch, to listen, to observe, without rushing to react, you will see things others miss. You will know the truth about people, about situations, and about yourself. And with that truth, you will make better decisions. Protect yourself from harm and move with a wisdom that noise can never give you. This is why silence is power. Not because it makes you weak, but because it gives you vision. It gives you clarity. It reveals the truth. And once you see the truth, no one can deceive you, no one can manipulate you, and no one can take your power away. Strength is not only measured by muscles or by how loudly you can shout your opinion. True strength is measured by how much control you have over yourself. And silence is the greatest training ground for self-control. It takes no effort to speak. It takes no effort to react, but it takes discipline to remain silent when everything inside of you wants to respond. It takes maturity to choose restraint over reaction. It takes wisdom to know that your energy is too valuable to be wasted on noise. Silence is not weakness. It is proof that you have built strength on the inside. Think about how easy it is to get pulled into arguments. Someone insults you, and the natural impulse is to snap back. Someone questions you, and the instinct is to defend yourself. Someone provokes you, and the urge is to fire back immediately. But every time you give in to that urge, you lose a piece of your strength. You are showing that someone else has the power to control your words, your mood, and your emotions. That's not strength. That's weakness disguised as confidence. Real strength is the ability to say, I don't need to respond. I don't need to react. I am in control of myself. That is silence, and that is power. Silence teaches you patience. When you don't rush to speak, you learn to wait, and waiting is strength, because in waiting, you learn that not everything requires an immediate response. You learn that sometimes the best thing to do is to allow time to reveal the truth. You learn that your emotions don't have to dictate your actions. In silence, you build the kind of patience that makes you unshakable. You become the person who doesn't crumble under pressure, who doesn't lose their cool, who doesn't let temporary feelings destroy permanent relationships or opportunities. That's inner strength, and silence builds it. Silence also builds resilience, because in silence you face yourself. Most people fear silence because it forces them to confront their own thoughts. It forces them to sit with their insecurities, their doubts, their pain. That's why people fill every moment with noise. They don't want to hear themselves, but the person who can sit in silence, who can endure the discomfort of facing their own thoughts, becomes stronger than anyone who constantly runs from themselves. Silence toughens your spirit. It makes you resilient enough to stand alone, to endure loneliness, to find peace without needing constant validation. That resilience is what separates the strong from the fragile. Another way silence builds strength is through clarity. When you stop talking, you start thinking. You begin to see things more clearly. You learn to process situations before reacting. You recognize patterns, consequences, and outcomes before they happen. That clarity allows you to make stronger decisions. People who rush to speak often regret it later. People who stay silent have time to think. And when they finally act, they act with precision. That kind of clarity is a weapon, and silence sharpens it. Silence also builds confidence. Because when you can stay quiet, it means you don't feel the need to prove yourself. Insecurity shouts. Confidence stays calm. When you're silent, you are showing that you don't need to convince anyone of your worth. You already know it. Kind of confidence commands respect. It intimidates people who expect you to beg for their approval. And it strengthens you from within, because you learn that your value doesn't depend on validation. It depends on your ability to stand strong in who you are, even without words. But silence doesn't only build strength against others, it builds strength against yourself. It trains you to master your impulses, to control your tongue, to hold back when speaking could harm you. The tongue is powerful. Words can destroy marriages, friendships, reputations, and opportunities in seconds. Learning silence is learning to tame the most dangerous weapon you carry, your own words. That kind of self-mastery is the highest form of strength, because if you can control your tongue, you can control your life. In silence, you also develop spiritual strength. Because silence is where you connect with something deeper than yourself. In silence, you hear your inner voice more clearly. In silence, you hear wisdom that is drowned out by constant noise. In silence, you recharge your soul. And when your spirit is strong, nothing can shake you on the outside. Silence feeds your inner strength in ways noise never will. Consider the strongest people you know. They are not the ones who always have something to say. They are the ones who can hold back, who can listen, who can sit calmly in the middle of chaos without being rattled. Their silence doesn't mean they're weak. It means they've built strength within themselves that doesn't need to be announced. They don't need to prove themselves with words. Their very presence is proof of their strength. So when you feel the pressure to respond, when you feel the urge to defend yourself, when you feel the temptation to argue just to prove you're right, remind yourself that silence is not weakness. It's the greatest test of strength. If you can hold your peace, you are stronger than the one who shouts. If you can stay calm, you are stronger than the one who explodes. If you can control your words, you are stronger than the one who cannot. That's what silence teaches you. Strength is not about how much you can lift, how loud you can shout, or how fast you can respond. Strength is about self-mastery. It's about discipline. It's about patience. And all of that is built in silence. The person who can master silence will always master themselves. And the person who masters themselves will always be stronger than the one who tries to master others. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is training. Silence is growth. Silence is inner power being built, one moment at a time. Every time you choose silence over noise, you become stronger. Every time you walk away from an argument, you add to your strength. Every time you resist the urge to speak when it doesn't serve you, you build your discipline, and that discipline creates unshakable inner strength. So don't see silence as weakness. See it as the gym for your spirit. Every time you stay silent when you could have spoken, you're lifting the weight of self-control. You're exercising your patience. You're building resilience. And over time, you'll discover that silence has made you stronger than you ever imagined. Not on the outside, but where it matters most, on the inside. At the end of the day, silence is not about saying nothing. It's about saying everything without words. It's about control. It's about wisdom. It's about strength. Silence is a choice, and that choice determines how much power you carry in your life. The truth is, anyone can talk. Anyone can argue. Anyone can lash out when emotions run high. That's easy. But it takes a different kind of person to hold back, to stand tall, and to let silence do the work. That person isn't weak. That person isn't afraid. That person is powerful because they understand that silence is not the absence of strength. It is the proof of it. The world we live in is loud. People are shouting for attention, arguing for validation, and wasting their breath on battles that don't matter. But the one who chooses silence rises above the noise. They don't get dragged into every fight. They don't waste their words on the undeserving. They don't need applause or approval. Their silence speaks louder than 1,000 voices. Remember this, silence can protect you. Silence can save you. Silence can build you. Silence can command respect when words would fall flat. And silence, above all, can give you the strength to master yourself. Because if you can master silence, you can master your life. So the next time someone tries to provoke you, the next time your emotions push you to speak, the next time you feel the urge to defend yourself when you don't need to, pause, breathe. Remember that your silence is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is power. It is strength. And if you can walk away with one truth from today, let it be this. Your silence will protect your peace, preserve your power, and elevate your life in ways words never can. So choose silence when it matters most, because the strongest voice you will ever have is the one that knows when not to speak.